Guys, welcome to our daily encounter. In Job chapter 9, we really began to see just how helpless Job feels, especially as he considers bringing his case before God. And chapter 9 really has kind of a judicial type of feel to it. Job thinks to himself, even if I could bring my case before God, could I really be successful in doing so? There in chapter 9 and verse 3, it says, if one wished to dispute with him, he could not answer him once in 1,000 times. And then in verse 4, we really get kind of a summary of the chapter. He says, wise in heart and mighty in strength, who has defied him without harm? And those are the two things that seem to intimidate Job in this particular situation. He knows that God is the only one who can really bring a remedy to his situation. It's only God who can really pull him out of the pit and really bring him out of this dark place that he has found himself in. And yet he feels helpless before God because God is wise in heart and mighty in strength. And Job just doesn't feel like he could really have a voice with God, nor could he overpower God. That basically God's going to do what he wants to do, and there's nothing that Job can do about it. In verses 5 and following, it talks about the strength of God. It is God who removes the mountains, they know not how, when he overturns them in his anger, who stakes the earth out of its place, and its pillars tremble, who commands the sun not to shine and sets a seal upon the stars, who alone stretches out the heavens and tramples down the waves of the sea, who makes the bear Orion and Pleiades and the chambers of the south, who does great things unfathomable and wondrous works without number. Were he to pass by me, I would not see him. Were he to move past me, I would not perceive him. Were he to snatch away, who could restrain him? Who could say to him, what are you doing? And so clearly Job says, God is way too powerful for me, and there's nothing I can do to stand up against his power. For those who perhaps have swam in the ocean and you get overtaken by a wave, and that feeling of helplessness, knowing that you are really at the mercy of the power of that wave, there's really nothing you can do to overpower it. You just have to really just throw yourself down at the mercy of that wave. Or if you can even imagine what that would be like, you can kind of get somewhat of a feeling of how Job feels, that there's a power that goes far above me and beyond me. There's nothing I can do against this great power that ultimately controls me. I feel helpless. But then he also talks about the wisdom of God, how he would not be able to really be able to answer the Lord and be able to plead his case before God. In verse 32, he says, for he is not a man as I am, that I may answer him, that we may go to court together. There's no umpire between us. Who may lay his hand upon us both? And then he goes on to talk about removing his rod and things like that. And so he basically saying, I can't even stand before God in court. God's wisdom, God's knowledge is too great. There's no really defense that I could give that would convince God to pull me out of this situation. So both God's strength and God's wisdom seem too great for Job, and he really seems helpless. And that really is the feeling that you get in chapter 9, how powerful God is, and also how God is wise and his knowledge is so high above us. And in reading this chapter, one can really feel very helpless before God, because it really impresses on our minds just how much we are not in control. Even though in our day-to-day business, as we kind of just conduct our business and we go about our daily activities, we might live under the assumption that we're in control, that we have our lives together, we can at least figure out solutions for our problems, we can somehow come up with solutions, and we might feel as though we are in control. But we have to really realize, and I think chapter 9 helps us to realize this, that we really are not in control. And it's when we find ourselves in situations similar to Job that we come to realize just how out of control we are, or how how much we're not in control, that really we have to ultimately and utterly depend upon God. That he's the one who controls all things. He is the one who is all powerful. He is the one who is all wise and all knowing. And that we really have to depend on him. And it's in those situations of tragedy, of distress, of hardship, when we find ourselves in situations where, try as we may, we cannot control the situation. We realize that there are powers at work much more greater than ourselves, that there is no way that we can, through our own ingenuity, figure out a solution to the problem. It's in those times that we really have impressed on our hearts just how much we are not in control. And if we would but remember that even on the good days, even on the days when perhaps things are carrying on as normal, we're in our routine, and things are kind of just going along the way that we would have them to go. Important for us to remember, even in those days, that can be taken away in a moment. And that's why we need to constantly, all the time, be in prayer to the Lord, trusting in the Lord, depending on the Lord, seeking the Lord's help in all situations, and really leaning on the Lord, putting our trust in him. Because there is an element to God that is not considered so much in this chapter that is very important to consider. Yes, God is all powerful. Yes, God is all wise and all knowing. And there is a sense in which we can't stand before God like that. But we also have to remember that God is also all loving. And that's the part of God that we can trust in, to say, yes, he does do whatever he wants. He is a powerful God. He is the ultimate authority in all the universe. But he loves us, and he loves us dearly. And we can trust in that love when we come to him with our complaints, when we come to him with our problems, with our difficulties, when we come to him with our weaknesses. We can go to him, yes, recognizing his power and his wisdom, but also recognizing his love. That if we but trust in his love, we know that he is working out things for our good. And that if we do remain in a difficult spot, it's because he is really trying to work out something good out of it, as Romans chapter 8 talks about. And so let's read chapter 9. Let's really be humbled by Job chapter 9. Let's remember that God is the one that is ultimately in control. We don't have control of our lives ultimately, but we trust in the Lord. We trust in his power, his wisdom, but also trust in his love. And therefore we can meet the day with confidence, trusting in God every step of the way. So these are some things we can reflect on and think about as we do a reading today. With that, guys, I do thank you for watching the video today. Hope you guys have a great day. Love you guys. God bless.